I think we have to switch off our mics.
I think what's that? We have some interference.
All our mics must be switched off.
I see like a, in the back. You guys heard the noise in the background?
Yeah, we have an echo.
Yeah.
Now it's okay.
All right. So we come to, okay. So now we are discussing.
Sorry. There's an echo of the voice.
My voice of the other person. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, no.
Yes.
Doctor?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you make
think-
a recording of
I
the
think somebody, I think when you are listening, maybe you need to turn off your microphone, I think. Let's try doing that.
Okay.
Unless you try to, kind of raising the question, that's fine. But if you are not raising any question or not trying to speak, maybe you can just turn off the microphone. Okay, so I'm talking about the problem definition. So the problem definition itself is consists of at least 5 steps: identifying the topic, which is the variable, the one that you are trying to do, and then you narrow the topic. Narrow the topic meaning that, let's say, motivation is your interest. So, and then what motivation? Staff motivation, leader motivation. So you identify the topics. So staff motivation, for example, and then you try to narrow the topic and then identify the problem in the topic. Once, I think like step number 2 normally takes some time. I think basically in the first semester, maybe you will be dealing with the second step, still trying to narrow the topic based on your readings. So meaning that during this time, you will be doing a lot of reading, and then you still are not really sure with the topic, your final topics, to be proposed in the proposal session, and to start writing, and identify the problem. When you are after semester 1, presumably after semester 1, you are ready. You're really sure that this is my topic, my variable. At least you have one variable, or maybe for some students they have 2 variables. So the variables that I'm referring to is the one will be appeared on your thesis, on your thesis. When you write your thesis, the front page is the variable. I consider as the main variable. So then you start writing the problem 1.2. As I mentioned, maybe you need at least like 20 pages on the problem background, maybe subdivided into few subtopics, let's say 4 subtopics: 1.2.1, 1.2.2, 1.2.3, and then 1.2.4. And then you come up with your research question based on those. So the easiest way to do it is the research question should be coming from the issues. If you have 4 issues, then supposedly the first one, the 1.2.1, is the main issues. So maybe from the first issue you have 2 research questions, and then for the second issue you have 2 research questions. For the third issue you maybe have 1, and then from the fourth one you have 1. So basically you have 2 plus 2, 4 plus 1 plus 1. You have 6 research questions, researchable one. So are you going to meet your supervisor and then let the supervisor knows about the research question and whether or not she or he agrees to the proposed question, and then you'll be fine. But the one that I'm trying to put on the slide now is from one other discipline, but it's a good example how we can basically narrow the topic by asking why. What we call problem 3, you keep asking. So when you have food insecurity problem, so you pose the question why, and then come up with low labor productivity, and then the other reason is low land productivity, and then you don't stop there, and then you keep asking, why is low land productivity? Because unsuitable climate, because water scarcity, unsuitable crops, poor soils, and then you keep asking until you get for the four stages. Stage which is you see 1, 2 on the in the yellow color, right? But there's one with the pink color, which is farmers can't afford the fertilizers. So maybe those students, this student, maybe he or she started with the food insecurity, but when you do the problem 3, finally, what you are looking for is not really directly, but indirectly, it will bring you to the other topic, which is also researchable in your area. For the farmers cannot afford the fertilizer. Maybe you as the student in this area, maybe the one that you're going to research is the fertilizer, which is affordable for the farmers. Maybe this, I don't know, maybe this chemical area or discipline, whatever. But the thing is, some people, they can easily do the narrowing the topic by using your experience in the field. If you are a teacher, for example, you're teaching and then you have problems in your area, so you are teaching mathematics, so you have problem, and then based on your experience, based on your discussion with your colleagues, you can basically focus on the topic. And after that, you start doing a lot of extensive research and readings on the topics, so meaning that you don't waste time. So it's going to be a little bit easier for you, and then you save some time, maybe one semester, maybe few months, dealing with the uncertainty. So this is example research topic in my area. The one is bold in English: principal leadership, inclusive education, teaching maths and science in English, single moms and their problem. Maybe those are in other field, sociology, improvement effort in cluster schools, school monetary management and discipline problem in schools. So this is maybe the topic that appear in my students. Among my students, they have this topic, and then after that they try to go into the research and readings and decide if they can still continue with the topic. So don't take so much time. I would suggest like the first semester when you come to UTM, basically at the end of the semester you're really firm with your topic. Some people, they change a lot, and then that thing is not good for you. It's wasting your time. So my advice is, I think during the end of your first semester, actually you are really determined, I think, in terms of the topic. Just pursue it and then just continue with what you think is a possible topic for your research. Because if you delay for some time, I don't think it's going to be a lot better for you. Because normally, I believe, my belief is, whatever topic you choose, if you are doing it right and then you got a good supervisor, you'll be able to identify the gaps or what we have to do in 1.2, the issues. When you got the issues, and then you got the research questions. So how many research questions? Up to your area. Maybe my area is 4 to 6 research questions for master by research. Maybe a little more, like 7, 8, around that figures, between 6 to 8, based on the quality of the research questions. Okay, so now what to do when dealing with too many questions in research? Normally, when we start with the reading, we have a lot of questions in our mind. Those are what we call as the preliminary question that we have in our mind. For example, I start with motivation. So my easiest question might be, who is not motivated? Senior staff or maybe junior staff, right? And maybe what happened? What really happened? So those are the things that maybe I have in my thinking, But that one is not yet your researchable question, because those lists, if you put it, nicely in order or whatever order that you use, you will be coming down to maybe 15, research question, which is not really finalized yet. Maybe 10, maybe up to 20 for some student maybe they have a lot of things to discover, in the research. So I suggest list all of them, and then some question they just need to be answered through chapter 2. Okay, so some question that we have in the back of our mind, our head, is maybe, for example, motivation. Who is really affected by the principal communication way of communication? So maybe those are the things that we are not going to research, because it's already appear in the literatures, and then a lot of researchers before us already did some good explanation on that one. But okay, so those are the things that I would say we answer in chapter 2, meaning that we discuss in chapter 2. So you put a lot of discussion in chapter 2 for those things which you don't select as your research question for the research. But those questions are valid, those questions are valid. Some people, if they read our thesis, they might come across those questions in their mind. So it's a basic, simple question answered by the previous research or maybe by the literature. So those questions from a big list of questions that we started with, you don't have to include. You include in chapter 2 only. But considerable amount, let's say between 6 to 8 research questions, you put it as your research questions, things that you want to do. And then you finalize with your supervisor, eliminate some of them already, and then make sure you rewrite the questions if necessary, using the correct term. For example, maybe it's a style. Is it a style of leadership? Is it a way of communication? Is it types of communication, or just a way of communication, or just differences in communication? So those are the things that we have to really make sure, because once you select your topic, your variables, the variable will be used consistently throughout chapter 1 until chapter 5. So you cannot just once you use maybe types of communication, and then the other one is style of communication, and then the other one is a different way of communication. So the term should be identified and then used consistently throughout the chapters. That's why when you do chapter 1, you have the research definitional operation, right? Operational definitions. So meaning that you need to be really sure from chapter 1 the term that you use. Normally 1.9 or 1.10, you'll be listing out the variables, the main variable as well as the small variables, the minor. So anybody can help me. As I said, you have the main variables, which is appear on your research title, right? How about the main variable? Where do we get the main variable from the thesis? Anybody can help me? Okay, we have the major variables. How about the minor variables, the small variable? Where do we get it in our thesis? Anybody can help me? Who can you help me? Anybody can help me?
From the research questions.
From the research question, good. From the research question. So from the research questions, so every research question, let's say you have 6 or 7, at least you have 7 there. 7, what we call as the minor variable. I don't call it minor actually, I call it small variables. So meaning that you have the you have 2 variable in your topic, and then you have 7 research questions. For most probably you have like in your operation definition, you have like a 6 plus 2, 8. You cannot miss that. Normally student, we make the sloppy mistake by not listing down out, So supposedly as a master or PhD student, we know what is our variable, the main variable. Of course, we cannot miss. We put it in 1.10, the operational definition, or 1.9 maybe. But the small variables from the research question, as the friend said just now, we have to put it in the list. You cannot miss that list. And then what is more important in the chapter 1 is your what we call as the operational definitions. So meaning that maybe the definition of staff motivation according to some literatures might be like this, but in terms of the way that we define it in our research is more focused in terms of staff motivation. We don't look at from only the staff perspective. Maybe it also will be measured from different angle. Let's say from the leader themselves, or from the subordinate, or maybe from the students. So those are the things. So don't make such mistake, because you have to be really sure about your variables and put it in the list, explain it, and then make sure you are in UTM format. They need both. One is the what we call as the term, right? The kind of the term that we get from the discipline, for example, or from the dictionary, or from the literatures. Those are the term what we call as like the definitions of the term itself. But the operational definition is different, the one that you will be using in your research. So so far, is there any question regarding the
Prof, I have a
yes.
question. Just now I heard you using the term small definition. Are you referring to independent variables? The small variables you mentioned just now. So is that an independent variable you're talking about?
No, not really independent variable. It doesn't have to be independent itself, because if you look at in the reality, when you have questions, one maybe if it is a correlational design, right? You have the independent and dependent.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing the correlational, so it won't be any dependent. Maybe you just want to be using descriptive, what level of motivation, for example, and then you don't have any correlational research question. Then you don't have independent and dependent.
Oh, okay.
But if you have, and also if you have experimental, for example, does the motivation affect the performance, right? So you want to do some kind of experimental design, increase the motivation in the course throughout, certain courses that you will offer for the staff. So those we consider as experimental design. So you have what we call as independent and dependent variables.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, noted. Thank you.
But that's a good question, because you have to look at some people, they disagree when you use the word independent and dependent variables, extensively, for correlational and experimental as well, because correlational has the idea that the thing correlated, but it doesn't have to be influenced by the independent variable. You get what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So motivation is just correlated statistically. So you do the statistical correlation, you see the significance, but it doesn't have. You cannot claim that motivation affect the performance. So it's just correlated, but it doesn't mean that it affects the performance. But if you're doing really experimental design, whether quasi-experimental or really full experimental, so you are trying to exploit, manipulate what we call the first variable, or what we call as independent variable, and then you get the dependent influenced by the independent variable. So to answer your question, yes, sometimes we have, sometimes we do not have the dependent variables. Some people, that's a good question, because some people, they think that they should have to, in the beginning, we're not talking about the research question, we're talking about the title, the topic. Some people, they come to the idea that you should have variable. I don't believe that, because we have to go deep in our research. PhD and master research going deep, right? So meaning that you can have a lot of question, not necessarily you do two variables, because let's say I'm talking about the leadership communication style. So I have a lot of questions: what level, what they choose, what's the problem, how to influence, and then maybe the correlation as you mentioned before. So in one variable, I have a lot of questions. I can put like at least 8 questions in my thesis. So why I need the second variable where I have to do a lot of reading, and then as you know, if you do a 2 variable, you have to intro in 1.1 the first variable, and then you have to intro the second variable, and then you have to intro the connection between the variables. You know what I mean? In chapter 1.1. You have to introduce variable number 1. You have to introduce variable number 2, and then you have to introduce the connection between the 2 variables. So it takes a lot of reading and a lot of writings, Whereas you can put one variable as your research topic, and then try to look at the issues, and then come out with the considerable amounts of question which is researchable, good enough, for you to defend the significance of the research. That's it. That's what you have to do. It doesn't have to be, I need to do 2 variable. I need to have motivation. I need to have performance in the front page of my thesis. I don't think that's true. But I'm not saying that you cannot do it, but that is not necessary. You have to do it that way. Okay. This one is I'm going to try to discuss about. Okay.
Professor.
Yeah.
Sorry, doctor. Some of our classmates want to get into the meeting. Can you be kindly let them in?
Yeah. Thank you for
Thank you.
mentioning it. Okay. But we are about to finish for the first session. I'll try to meet. Okay. Okay. Yaona, Xuan, Zhang, and Dushi, I think. Okay. Already.
Excuse me, doctor, is the meeting is recorded?
You know what? I forgot to record it. Okay. I have some difficulty to do the recording. Okay, I'll try later on, but we're almost at the end of the first session. Do you have any question before we come to the conclusion for the first session? Is there any question?
Doctor, how many chapters do we have to write?
How many pages?
How many chapters?
Okay. You're international, right?
No, local.
Okay. Depend. Okay.
The record
Chapter
button.
actually. Okay. Let me answer the question. Actually, it's five chapters, but in some area, I've seen some discipline like psychology. I've been the chair for one of the session, the Viva, I think, or not Viva, the proposal. They request for the 6 chapters, because for the other chapters, which is supposed to be chapter 4. Okay, we're talking about chapter 4. Instead of chapter 4 doing the analysis, they request chapter 4 to be the preliminary studies. In some format, other university, they request for one chapter, which is the background of the, if you're doing pretty much like
Problem background.
let's say some people from Iran coming here to do the UTM thesis, right? So they need one chapter on Iran education, for example, related to the topic. So it is an additional one chapter. But